The champagne bottle shattered against the VIP lounge floor, and through the cascade of golden liquid and broken glass, I heard Kareem's voice cut through the music like a blade. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed. Because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Ya Allah, look who crawled in here, he said in Arabic, nudging his friend Tarek, the girl who couldn't even afford her own coffee when we dated. I stood frozen in the entrance of the Damascus room, the most exclusive section of Sahara Nights. My club. The one I'd poured 3 years of silent sweat and strategic planning into building. The irony would have been funny if my chest didn't feel like someone had driven a stake through it. Kareem didn't see me yet. He was too busy holding court with his usual crew, Tarek, Hassan, and that new guy, Omar, who'd started working in promotions last month. They were sprawled across the black leather sectional I'd personally selected from Italy, bottles of premium vodka lined up on the obsidian table. Bottles that would cost them $800 each if they were actually paying, but they weren't. Because 3 months ago, Kareem had sweet-talked his way onto our guest list, claiming he was a brand influencer who could bring the right crowd. My floor manager, Yasmin, had believed him. She didn't know what I knew, that Kareem's entire existence was smoke and mirrors, built on credit cards and borrowed confidence. Nadia, you good? My assistant Maya touched my elbow, her dark eyes concerned. She'd been with me since day one of the few people who knew that the mysterious N. Mansour listed as owner on all the paperwork was actually me, Nadia Mansour, the 29-year-old woman Kareem had dumped 8 months ago for being unmotivated and content with mediocrity. I'm fine, I whispered back, but my hands trembled as I gripped my clutch. The black Valentino dress I'd chosen specifically for tonight's investor meeting suddenly felt like armor that was too thin. Hassan's laugh boomed across the room. Bro, remember when she asked you to loan her money for her business idea? What was it? Some online boutique? A vintage clothing store? Kareem corrected, his tone dripping with condescension. She wanted to sell used clothes on Instagram. Can you imagine? I told her to get a real job. The vintage clothing store had been my cover story. What I'd actually been doing during those long nights while Kareem slept beside me, snoring after another evening of clubbing on my dime, was building a business plan for Sahara Nights. I'd been networking with investors, meeting with architects, studying market trends in the hospitality industry until my eyes burned. And I'd been doing it all while pretending to be exactly what Kareem thought I was, a struggling freelance graphic designer barely making rent. Maya squeezed my arm. Want me to have security escort them out? God, did I want that. I wanted to watch Kareem's face crumble as he was dragged past the velvet ropes by our security team. I wanted him to understand, in that moment, exactly who he'd underestimated, but that wasn't the plan. Not yet. No, I said, straightening my spine. Let them stay. I want to see how deep they'll dig. I'd learned a long time ago that revenge served cold is revenge served right. My father had taught me that, years before his own business partners had betrayed him. Before we'd lost everything, the house in Beirut, the summer villa in the mountains, the easy confidence that comes with generational wealth. I was 12 when we arrived in America with 3 suitcases and my mother's jewelry, the only assets my father had managed to hide from his partner's legal assault. 23 when he died from a stress-induced heart attack, still fighting to rebuild what he'd lost. 25 when I met Kareem at a mutual friend's birthday party, still raw from grief and hungry for someone to see me. He'd seemed perfect at first, charming, ambitious, always impeccably dressed. He worked in international consulting, which I later learned meant he connected Middle Eastern clients with American businesses, taking modest commissions. Nothing wrong with that, Except Kareem spent like he was closing deals worth millions when his actual cut was barely 5 figures. "You're so down to earth," he'd told me on our third date, holding my hand across the table at some restaurant where the prices had no dollar signs. "Not like these materialistic women in LA. You get what's important." What he'd meant, I realized too late, was that I was cheap, easy, that I'd split the bill without complaining, drive him around in my 10-year-old Honda while his BMW was in the shop, help him with his rent when he claimed his commission check was delayed. I'd believed in him, believed in us. Even when my best friend Layla had pulled me aside and said, "Nadia, Habibti, open your eyes. This man is using you." Even when my mother, during one of our weekly calls to her apartment in Dearborn, had said in Arabic, "A man who lets his woman pay is not a man. He's a boy playing dress up." I'd defended him, told them they didn't understand, that we were a team, that he supported my dreams. Then I'd gotten the call from my father's old friend, Mr. Bashir. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, like this video, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. "Your father had a life insurance policy," he'd said, his elderly voice crackling over the phone. "It finally cleared probate. It's not a fortune, Nadia, but it's enough. Enough for you to build something. Something he would have been proud of. $275,000. Everything my father couldn't give me in life, he'd managed to leave me in death." I'd been sitting in Kareem's apartment when I got the news, waiting for him to come home from another networking event. The papers from Mr. Bashir's law office spread across the coffee table like a promise, a chance. When Kareem finally walked in at 2 a.m., smelling like perfume that wasn't mine and barely able to focus his eyes, I'd told him about the inheritance. "That's amazing, baby." He'd wrap me in a hug that smelled like alcohol and lies. "We should celebrate. Take a trip. Dubai, maybe? I have connections there." "I want to invest it," I'd said quietly. "Start that business I told you about." The vintage store. My cover story, because I couldn't bear to tell him my real dream yet, not when it was so fragile, so new. His face had changed, hardened. "Nadia, be realistic. The failure rate for small businesses is like 90%. You don't have any real experience. Why don't you let me introduce you to some investment opportunities? My friend Tarek knows people in crypto. I want to do this myself." This is exactly what I'm talking about. He'd pulled away from me, running his hands through his perfect hair. "You're content with mediocrity. You could let me help you turn that money into real wealth. But instead, you want to play shopkeeper with secondhand clothes." We'd fought for 3 hours. By the end, he'd said words that still echoed in my skull. "You're never going to be anything more than what you are right now, Nadia. A struggling designer with big dreams and no execution. I need someone who matches my ambition, who can keep up with my lifestyle." He'd broken up with me at 5 a.m. via text message after I'd finally left his apartment and driven home in tears. The text said he was pursuing other opportunities and that I shouldn't contact him again. I'd blocked his number, deleted every photo, cried for 3 days straight, and then I'd gotten to work. Mr. Bashir had introduced me to his nephew, Farid, a real estate developer who'd been looking for partners on a new project in West Hollywood. An old building, prime location, perfect for renovation. Farid was honest, sharp, and most importantly, willing to take a chance on a 26-year-old woman with more determination than experience. "Your father and I were friends for 40 years, Farid had said during our first meeting, his kind eyes crinkling behind his glasses. "He would have wanted me to help you. But Nadia, I won't just give you anything. You'll work for every inch of this. You'll learn the business inside out. And if you fail on your own merit." I'd spent 6 months learning construction management, hospitality operations, licensing requirements, Marketing strategies. I'd worked 16-hour days, surviving on coffee and the image of Kareem's face when he realized what he'd walked away from. Sahara Nights had opened its doors exactly 18 months ago. Within 6 months, we were the most sought-after nightclub in West Hollywood. Within a year, we were profitable. Now, walking into our second year, we had a waiting list 3 weeks long for table reservations and celebrities sliding into our DMs begging for access. And through it all, I'd remained invisible. N. Mansour, on the paperwork. The owner, in conversation. A mysterious figure no one had met but everyone wanted to know. Voila, I dodged a bullet. Kareem's voice pulled me back to the present. He was pouring himself another drink, gesturing expansively. Can you imagine if I'd stuck with that? I'd be financing her failures right now instead of closing deals. What deals? Tarek asked, and I caught the slight edge in his voice. Even his friends were starting to see through the facade. Big one coming next week, Kareem said smoothly. Can't talk about it yet. NDA. But let's just say it involves some Saudi investors and a hotel chain. Lies. I'd learned from Layla, who was still friendly with Kareem's cousin, that he'd been fired from his last consulting gig 2 months ago for inflating his client list. The international consulting was now just Kareem living off credit cards and the generosity of friends who hadn't yet realized he never picked up a check. Maya touched my elbow again. Your investor is here. Camille Laurent, from the Paris Hospitality Group? Right. Tonight wasn't about Kareem, as much as my pounding heart wanted it to be. Tonight was about securing $2 million in expansion funding to open a second location in Miami. Camille Laurent represented a group that could make Sahara Nights a national brand. Where is she? I asked, forcing my voice steady. Orchid Room. She arrived 10 minutes ago with her team. I nodded, pulling my focus away from the Damascus room. From Kareem and his poison. Let's go. But as Maya and I turned to leave, Hassan's voice rang out in Arabic, loud enough to carry over the music. Speaking of failures, isn't that the girl right there? He was pointing directly at me. Kareem, isn't that Nadia? My blood turned to ice, then fire. Kareem's eyes found mine across the room, and I watched recognition dawn on his face, followed by something ugly, glee. Nadia. He stood up, spreading his arms wide in a mockery of welcome. Ya Allah, what are you doing here? Don't tell me you finally got a job. Are you hostessing? The music felt too loud, the lights too bright. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to hide, to shrink back into the shadows where I'd been safe and anonymous. But I'd learned something in the past 2 years. Building this place from concrete and steel and sheer willpower. I'd learned that silence could be a weapon, that patience was power, and that the best revenge wasn't served quickly, it was served with precision. So I smiled. Soft, careful, the smile of someone who'd been caught where they didn't belong. Just visiting a friend, I said, my voice deliberately small. I didn't know you came here. We're VIP, Omar chimed in, clearly not reading the room. He was new, didn't know the history. Kareem knows the owner. We get the hookup. That's nice, I said, and I let my eyes dart away, playing the part perfectly. The uncomfortable ex-girlfriend. The failure who'd stumbled into her ex's territory. Kareem's smile widened. He was enjoying this. You should say hi before you go. Have a drink. Unless... He leaned toward his friends. Stage whispering in Arabic. Unless she can't afford it. Should we spot her? Tarek looked uncomfortable. Hassan laughed, but it sounded forced. Omar just looked confused, not understanding the Arabic. I'm okay, I said softly. I should go. Nice seeing you, Kareem. I turned away, my heart hammering, and felt Maya's steadying hand on my back. That was brutal, she whispered as we walked. Are you sure? I'm sure, I said. And now my smile was real. Small, but real. Let him have his fun tonight. Tomorrow starts the countdown. The countdown? To their expulsion from paradise. We walked through the main club floor, past the writhing dancers and the bars where my bartenders poured drinks with practiced precision. Past the DJ booth, where tonight's featured artist was spinning something deep and hypnotic. Past the gold-accented walls and the custom lighting that had cost a fortune, but created exactly the ambiance I'd envisioned. Every inch of this place was mine, built with my father's legacy and my own bloodied hands, and Kareem was inside it, drinking my liquor, sitting on my furniture, mocking me for being exactly what I'd let him believe I was. The orchid room was quieter, more intimate. Camille Laurent sat at a corner table with two associates, all three of them elegant and sharp-eyed in that particularly French way. She stood when she saw me, extending a hand. Ms. Mansour, finally. I was beginning to think you were a ghost. Just fashionably mysterious, I said, switching effortlessly into the version of myself I'd built for the business world. Confident, polished, unshakable. Thank you for making the trip. How could I resist? Sahara Nights has quite the reputation, though I admit, I'm surprised. When Farid told me his partner was a young woman, I expected someone more visible. I smiled as I sat down. I prefer to let the business speak for itself. And it speaks volumes. Camille gestured to the room, the club beyond. In just 2 years, you've created something remarkable. The question is, can you replicate it? For the next hour, I walked Camille through our expansion plans. The Miami location, the market research, the demographic studies. I showed her our revenue projections, our cost analyses, our risk assessments. I was thorough, professional, answering every question with data I'd spent months compiling. But part of my mind stayed in the Damascus room, on Kareem, drunk on my liquor, laughing at the woman he thought he'd left behind. He had no idea that the countdown had already begun. This is impressive, Camille said, closing the leather portfolio I'd prepared. More than impressive, your attention to detail, your understanding of the market. This is the work of someone with far more experience than 2 years. I had good teachers, I said, thinking of Farid, of Mr. Bashir, of my father who'd lost everything but taught me how to build. And a good instinct, clearly. Camille leaned back, studying me with those sharp eyes. I'll be honest, Ms. Mansour. We came here tonight prepared to be skeptical. Young owner, new to the industry, big expansion plans. It often doesn't end well. But you've impressed me. The numbers are sound. The vision is clear. And this place, she gestured around. This place is exactly what you promised it would be. Does that mean? It means we're interested. Very interested. But I need to do my due diligence. I want to meet your full team, see your books, understand the operational structure. Can you arrange that? Absolutely. When works for you. We scheduled meetings, exchanged contact information, made plans. By the time Camille and her associates left, I had what I'd come for, a foot in the door toward major expansion funding. But the victory felt hollow as I stepped back into the main club, because through the crowd, through the music and the lights, I could see into the Damascus room. Could see Kareem, still there, still drinking, still laughing, still thinking he'd won. Maya appeared at my elbow. The Laurent meeting went well? Very well. I checked my watch. Almost midnight. How long has Kareem's group been here? About 3 hours. They've gone through 2 bottles so far. Hassan tried to order a third, but the bartender said they're cut off. House policy, after 2 bottles. Who's their server tonight? Jennifer. Why? Have her bring them a third bottle. On the house. Maya's eyes widened. Nadia. Do it. Tell her it's a gift from management, and keep them coming, as long as they stay. You want them drunk. I want them comfortable, relaxed. Let them think they're untouchable. I smiled, and this time it wasn't small or careful. This time it was the smile of a woman who'd learned that the best traps are the ones people walk into willingly. Tomorrow morning, I want you to pull security footage from tonight, every moment they've been in that room. And I want you to call our legal team. What are we looking at? Harassment, defamation, violation of club policy, and whatever else our lawyers can find. I paused. Also, I want you to contact every venue in a 50-mile radius. Let them know Kareem Hassan and his associates are persona non grata. Share the footage. Make sure they understand these aren't the kind of clients anyone wants. Maya's smile matched mine. You're going to blacklist them. From every decent venue in Los Angeles, they want to pretend they're VIP? Let's see how they handle being nobodies. What about the confrontation earlier, when he called you out? That? I laughed, and it felt good. Cleansing. That was the best thing that could have happened. It's on camera. Clear audio. Him mocking me in multiple languages. Trying to humiliate me in my own establishment. It's perfect. We stood there together, watching Kareem and his friends through the crowd. They had no idea they were being observed. No idea that every word, every gesture, every moment of cruel laughter was being documented. When do we move? Maya asked. End of the week. Give them enough time to think they got away with it. Let them come back even. The more evidence we have, the better. And then? And then Kareem learns what it's like to be cut off from paradise. A commotion at the Damascus room entrance caught my attention. Jennifer, the server, was gesturing emphatically while Hassan appeared to be arguing with her. Security. Marcus, my head of security and ex-Marine, who took no nonsense from anyone, was moving toward them. Maya and I headed over. Telling you, we're good for it, Hassan was saying, his words slurred. Kareem knows the owner. We're VIP. Sir, I understand, but house policy is clear. The third bottle is complimentary, but we can't serve you additional alcohol beyond that. I'd be happy to bring you some water, coffee. We don't want water. This was Omar, standing now, swaying slightly. Do you know who we are? Marcus stepped between them and Jennifer, his presence alone enough to make Omar step back. Gentlemen, the lady explained our policy. You're welcome to enjoy the bottle you have, but we won't be serving additional alcohol tonight. Kareem appeared then, sliding out from the Damascus room with that smooth confidence that had once made my stomach flutter. Now it just made me tired. What's going on? He assessed the situation, then his eyes landed on Marcus. His smile widened. There's a misunderstanding. See, I know N. Mansour, the owner. We have an arrangement. I held my breath. Marcus didn't even blink. Do you have that in writing, sir? It's a verbal agreement, between friends. Then I suggest you contact your friend and have them verify that. Until then, club policy stands. This is ridiculous. Kareem pulled out his phone. I'll call right now. I almost laughed. He was bluffing, of course. He'd somehow gotten onto the guest list, maybe charmed Yasmin or one of the other managers with his practiced lies. But he didn't know N. Mansour, had never met the owner, had no number to call. We all watched as he held the phone to his ear, pretending to wait for an answer. The music pounded. The club swirled around us, and Kareem stood there, phone pressed to his ear, bluffing. Finally, he lowered it. Voicemail. It's late. Obviously they're busy, but I'll have this sorted out by tomorrow. Looking forward to it, Marcus said, his tone suggesting he wasn't. In the meantime, enjoy your evening, within the limits of club policy. Kareem's eyes narrowed. For a moment I saw beneath the charm to something uglier. Pride, wounded, control, slipping. Then he smiled. Of course, no problem. Come on, guys, let's go somewhere that appreciates our business. As they gathered their things, Kareem's eyes swept the crowd one more time. They landed on me, standing in the shadows with Maya. Recognition flickered, then contempt. He said something to Tarek in Arabic. I caught only part of it, but the words I did catch made my blood boil. Poor girl. Probably networking, looking for a man to pay her bills. They left in a cluster of expensive cologne and wounded egos, pushing through the crowd like they owned it. The main floor, the VIP area, the life I'd built. They walked through it all like conquerors forced into retreat. When they were gone, Marcus turned to me. You want me to ban them officially? Not yet, I said. Let them think they can come back. I want to see what they do next. Maya was typing on her phone. I'm messaging the security office. They'll pull tonight's footage and have it ready by morning. Good. I took a deep breath, letting the tension drain from my shoulders. I'm going home. Keep everything running smooth. Always do, boss. Boss. The word still felt strange sometimes. Foreign, like wearing shoes that hadn't quite broken in yet. But I'd earned it. Every sleepless night, every risk, every moment I'd chosen silence over revelation, all of it had led here. To this club, this success, this moment where I could choose how and when to reveal the truth. I left through the back entrance, the VIP exit that led directly to the private parking garage. My car, a modest BMW, nice but not flashy, sat waiting. I'd learned to be careful about displays of wealth, learned that invisibility was often the best protection. The drive home took 20 minutes. I lived in a condo in Century City, 2 bedrooms, good security, nice view. Nothing extravagant. I'd learned from my father's mistakes. Never put all your success on display. Keep something in reserve. Stay liquid. Stay ready. Inside, I kicked off my heels and poured myself a real drink. Whiskey, expensive, the kind my father used to enjoy before we lost everything. I stood at the window, looking out at the glittering sprawl of Los Angeles, and let myself feel it all. The anger, the satisfaction, the bittersweet victory of building something beautiful while the person who doubted me mocked me from inside it. My phone buzzed, a text from Layla. Heard from Maya. Kareem's an idiot. Need me to help? I smiled, typing back. Already handled. But soon. Very soon. Can't wait to watch him squirm. Love you. Love you too. I set down the phone and pulled up my laptop. Sleep could wait. I had work to do. First, an email to my lawyers. Brief, professional, outlining tonight's events and attaching the security footage link Maya would send in the morning. Subject line, documentation for potential legal action. Second, a calendar invite for Friday morning. Attendees, Maya, Marcus, Yasmin, and our PR manager Lisa. Subject line, strategic response meeting. Third, a draft email to Fareed, updating him on the Laurent meeting and outlining next steps for the Miami expansion. Business. Always business. It was easier than feeling, safer than remembering the girl I'd been 2 years ago, crying in her car after the man she loved told her she'd never be anything more than mediocre. That girl was gone now, replaced by someone harder, sharper, more careful. But as I sat there in my quiet condo, laptop glowing in the darkness, I wondered if that was really a victory, if becoming invulnerable meant you'd also become unreachable. My phone buzzed again. This time, an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I opened it. Nadia, it's Kareem. Got your number from Yasmin. Had to do some digging, lol. Look. About tonight. Weird running into you there. Anyway, I've been thinking. Maybe we ended things too harshly? Wanna grab coffee sometime? Catch up? I stared at the message for a long moment. The audacity of it. the sheer breathtaking arrogance. He'd mocked me in Arabic, called me broke, unsuccessful, a failure, had his friends laugh at my expense, and now, hours later, he wanted to grab coffee? No, not coffee. He wanted something else. Either he'd figured out something was going on with Sahara Nights and was trying to worm his way back in, or he was simply bored and saw me as an easy mark again. Neither option was acceptable. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the message to Maya with a single word: evidence. Then I blocked his number. Again. Some bridges weren't worth rebuilding. Some people didn't deserve second chances. And some revenge needed time to ferment, like wine, into something perfect. I closed my laptop and finally headed to bed. Tomorrow would be long. The Laurent deal needed attention. The Miami expansion required planning. And starting Friday, Kareem's world would begin to crumble in ways he couldn't yet imagine. But tonight, for just a moment, I let myself remember something my father had told me the year before he died. We'd been sitting in his small apartment in Glendale, eating takeout because he couldn't afford to take me to restaurants anymore. I'd been 24, working 3 freelance jobs, trying to help with his medical bills. Nadia, he'd said, his voice weak but steady. When I lost everything, I learned something important. Success isn't about how much you have, it's about how you rebuild when everything is taken from you. And Habibi, you're stronger than I ever was. When your time comes, and it will come, you'll build something I only dreamed of. Baba, don't talk like that. You're going to recover. We'll rebuild together. He'd smiled, that sad, knowing smile of someone who understood their time was limited. Maybe. Inshallah. But promise me something. When you succeed, not if, when. Don't become like the men who destroyed me. Don't let success make you cruel. I promise, Baba. And Nadia, when someone underestimates you, shows you who they really are, believe them, and then show them exactly who you are. I'd held his hand, thin and papery in mine, and promised. Now, standing in my bedroom, successful beyond what either of us could have imagined, I wondered if I was keeping that promise. If what I was planning for Kareem was justice or just cruelty dressed up in professional clothing. Then I remembered his voice tonight, loud and mocking, deliberately speaking in Arabic so I would understand every insult. Remembered the laughter of his friends, the casual cruelty of people who thought they were untouchable. No, this wasn't cruelty. This was consequence. And Kareem was about to learn the difference. I set my alarm for 6 a.m. and closed my eyes, letting sleep take me into dreams of Friday's meeting, of Miami expansion plans, of a future where Sahara Nights wasn't just a club, but an empire. And somewhere in those dreams, Kareem's face appeared, confused, angry, finally understanding, finally seeing. I smiled in my sleep, and tomorrow began to take shape. Friday morning arrived with the kind of crisp Los Angeles sunshine that made everything feel possible. I dressed carefully, a charcoal Tom Ford suit, silk blouse, Louboutin heels that added 3 inches to my 5'6" frame. War paint, my mother would have called it. The armor you wear when you're about to change someone's life. The conference room at Sahara Nights was already full when I arrived at 9 a.m. Maya sat at the table with her laptop open. Marcus stood by the door with his arms crossed. Yasmin looked nervous, clutching her coffee. And Lisa, our PR manager with her signature red lipstick and sharp bob, was reviewing notes on her tablet. "Morning, everyone," I said, taking my seat at the head of the table. "Thank you for being here. We have a situation that needs addressing." Maya dimmed the lights and pulled up the security footage on the large screen. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m., Wednesday night. There was Kareem, holding court in the Damascus room, his voice clear through our high-quality audio system. "Ya Allah, Look who crawled in here, the girl who couldn't even afford her own coffee when we dated. I watched my team's faces as the footage played, watched Yasmin's eyes widen with recognition. She'd been the one who'd approved Kareem's guest list addition. Watched Marcus's jaw tighten as Kareem's mocking continued. Watched Lisa take notes, her expression calculating. The footage rolled on, Hassan pointing at me. Kareem's theatrical welcome. The Arabic insults about me being broke, unable to find real work, probably networking for a man to pay my bills. When it ended, silence filled the room. Jesus, Yasmin whispered. Nadia, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I held up a hand. You had no reason to know. Kareem was someone from my past. He got on the guest list by claiming industry connections. That's not your fault. What do you want to do? Marcus asked, his voice hard. I can have him banned from every venue I know. Make some calls. More than that, I said, leaning forward. Lisa, what's our legal standing here? Lisa looked up from her tablet. Strong. Very strong. He's on camera harassing a patron, you, in a targeted, personal manner. The Arabic language element actually strengthens the case because it shows premeditation. He deliberately chose a language thinking he could insult you without consequences. We can argue harassment, defamation, and hostile environment. If we wanted to push it, we could even explore ethnic harassment angles, though that might be overkill. I don't want to sue him, I said. I want something more effective. Maya smiled. The blacklist. Exactly. I stood, walking to the screen where Kareem's frozen face sneered at us. This is a small industry. Everyone knows everyone. Marcus, I want you to send this footage to your security network, every club, lounge, and venue in LA. Frame it as a safety warning. These individuals engaged in targeted harassment of a patron and attempted to leverage false connections to club ownership. Done, Marcus said, already typing on his phone. Lisa, I want a press release. Nothing dramatic, just professional. Sahara Nights maintains a zero-tolerance policy for harassment and has taken action to protect our guests and staff. Don't name Kareem specifically, but make sure the industry knows we handled a situation. That'll be ready by noon. Yasmin, I want you to review our guest list procedures. This is a learning opportunity. Anyone claiming industry connections needs to be verified through multiple channels before approval. Yasmin nodded, still looking miserable. I'll have new protocols written up by Monday. Good. I returned to my seat. Now, the interesting part. Wednesday night, Kareem tried to call the owner in front of security. Obviously, that call went nowhere, but it got me thinking. What if the owner wanted to meet him? Maya's eyes lit up. Oh, that's evil. I love it. Here's what we're going to do. I outlined my plan, watching their faces shift from confusion to understanding to delighted conspiracy. By the time I finished, even Yasmin was smiling. When? Marcus asked. Tonight, Friday night, prime time, when the club is packed and his humiliation will be complete. One problem, Lisa said. How do we get him here? If he's been blacklisted, he hasn't been. Not yet. He still thinks he has access. In fact, I pulled out my phone and opened a burner app I'd downloaded that morning. He's about to receive a very interesting invitation. I composed the message carefully, using a number that would appear to be from the club's management line. Mr. Hassan, this is Rachel from Sahara Nights Management. We've reviewed Wednesday night's situation, and Mr. Mansour would like to meet with you personally to discuss your arrangement. Tonight, 10 p.m., Orchid Room. Please confirm attendance. I showed it to the group. Maya whistled. Using a woman's name. He'll assume it's an assistant. Exactly. His ego won't let him suspect anything else. I sent the message. We waited. 30 seconds later, my phone buzzed. Confirmed. I knew we'd work this out. See you tonight. The arrogance was almost beautiful in its predictability. "All right," I said, standing. "We have 12 hours. Marcus, the blacklist goes out at 11 p.m. tonight, after our meeting. I want him to walk into a world that's already closed to him. He just doesn't know it yet. Lisa, the press release goes live at the same time. Maya, I need you to pull every record of Kareem's visits here, how many times, what he's ordered, what he's claimed. On it. And everyone? This stays between us. No one else on staff knows about tonight's meeting. As far as they're concerned, it's a standard owner visit." They filed out, energized by the plan. Only Maya stayed behind. "You okay?" she asked softly. I thought about the question. Was I okay? Was this okay? Was I becoming exactly what my father had warned against? Someone who used power cruelly? Then I remembered Kareem's voice, the laughter, the casual cruelty of someone who thought they could walk through my life and leave wreckage without consequence. "I'm fine," I said. "Better than fine. I'm just giving someone a dose of truth. He's going to be devastated. Good. Maybe he'll learn something." Maya squeezed my shoulder and left me alone in the conference room. I stared at the frozen image of Kareem on the screen, remembering the man I'd thought he was. The man I'd loved, or thought I'd loved. That man had never existed. I'd loved a performance, a mask, and now it was time for that mask to crack. The day passed in a blur of regular business. A conference call with Camille Laurent's team about Miami expansion details. A meeting with our head chef about updating the VIP menu. Paperwork, emails, the endless small decisions that kept a club running smoothly. But underneath it all, electric anticipation hummed through my veins. At 9 p.m., I changed into something different. Not a business suit this time. I chose a midnight blue dress. Elegant, expensive, unmistakably successful. I swept my dark hair up, applied makeup with precision, and added the diamond earrings my father had given my mother on their 20th anniversary. The ones I'd sold once, in desperation, then bought back the moment I could afford to. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. The girl Kareem had dated, insecure, eager to please, willing to shrink herself, was gone. In her place stood someone who'd built an empire from ashes. "You ready?" Maya appeared in the doorway of my office. "Ready." We walked through the club together. Friday night at Sahara Nights was always spectacular. The energy, the crowd, the electricity of people desperate to be seen in the right place. Tonight it felt even more alive, as if the building itself knew something significant was about to happen. The orchid room had been set up perfectly. A single table, 2 chairs facing each other, soft lighting that was flattering but clear, and discreetly positioned in the corners. Cameras. Not our security cameras, but professional equipment Lisa had brought in to document everything. "For insurance," she'd said, "just in case he tries to claim something later." Marcus stood outside the orchid room entrance, imposing in his black suit. "He arrived 10 minutes ago. I told him Mr. Mansour was running a few minutes late and offered him a drink. He's on his second whiskey." "Perfect. Is he alone?" "Tarek dropped him off but didn't stay. Kareem told him this was a business meeting and he'd text when he needed pickup." I smiled. Of course he had. Couldn't let his friends know he'd been called in like a misbehaving child. "All right, let's do this." I pushed open the door to the orchid room. Kareem stood immediately, his face arranged in a smile that was all confidence. He'd dressed up. Designer suit, expensive watch, shoes that probably cost more than he could actually afford. The armor of a man who needed everyone to think he was more successful than he was. "Mr. Mansour, thank you for—" He stopped, blinked. The smile faltered. "Nadia?" "Hello, Kareem. Please, sit down. I don't understand. Where's—" I'm N. Mansour, owner of Sahara Nights, founder, CEO, and the person you've been claiming to know for the past 3 months. I watched the information try to process across his face: denial, confusion, disbelief. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. That's not. You can't be. This is a joke. It's not. I sat down across from him, crossing my legs elegantly. Please sit. We have a lot to discuss. He sank into the chair like his legs had given out. You own this place? I built this place. From the ground up. While you were telling everyone I was a failure who couldn't land an entry-level position, I was securing funding, hiring contractors, and creating what's now the most successful nightclub in West Hollywood. But you were a graphic designer. You were broke. I was neither broke nor just a graphic designer. I was careful. Strategic. I learned early that showing people who you really are is dangerous. They use it against you. Try to take what you've built. Try to diminish your success. Kareem's face had gone pale. His eyes darted around the room as if looking for an escape. A gotcha. Proof this was some elaborate prank. The inheritance, he said slowly. You told me you got an inheritance. $275,000. My father's life insurance. The money you told me to give to your friend Tarek for his crypto scheme. I was trying to help you grow it. You were trying to get your hands on it. I leaned forward. Here's what actually happened, Kareem. I took that money and partnered with a real developer. I spent 6 months learning everything about the hospitality industry. I worked 16-hour days. I built something real while you were bouncing between consulting gigs and living off credit cards. This isn't fair. His voice cracked slightly. You lied to me. You let me think. I protected myself. Because men like you, Kareem, you don't love women. You love what women can give you. You loved me when you thought I was struggling, because it meant you were better than me. You could be the successful one, the ambitious one. You could use my resources, my time, my money, my car, my emotional labor, without ever having to worry I'd outshine you. That's not true, isn't it? When I told you about the inheritance, you immediately tried to control what I did with it. When I said I wanted to start a business, you told me I'd fail. You didn't support me. You tried to diminish me because my success would have threatened yours. He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was smaller. So, all of this. Wednesday night. You were here. You saw everything. I heard everything. In Arabic and English. Every joke about me being broke. Every laugh at my expense. Every cruel word you said while sitting in my club, drinking my liquor, pretending you knew the owner. Nadia, I was drunk. I didn't mean. You meant every word. Drunk words are sober thoughts, Kareem. You showed me exactly what you think of me, what you've always thought of me. He ran his hands through his hair, that gesture I used to find endearing. Now it just looked desperate. Okay, I messed up. But come on, we can fix this. We were good together once. We could be again. I made a mistake breaking up with you. Stop. The word came out harder than I'd intended. Do you really think that's why you're here? Because I want you back? I don't know why I'm here. You're here to understand consequence. For 2 years, I've watched you float through life claiming success you haven't earned, connections you don't have, and respect you haven't deserved. You've used people, lied to friends, and mocked anyone you perceive as beneath you. And you've done it all without ever facing real consequence. What are you saying? I pulled out my phone and showed him the screen, the security footage from Wednesday night, queued up and ready to play. At 11 p.m. tonight, this footage goes to every club, lounge, and venue in Los Angeles. along with a professional courtesy warning from our security team about individuals who engage in targeted harassment and false claims of ownership connections. His face went from pale to gray. You're blacklisting me. The industry is blacklisting you. I'm just providing them with information they need to make informed decisions about their clientele. Nadia, please. This will ruin me. I network at these places. I make deals. You make empty promises at these places. You drink on other people's tabs and pretend to be more successful than you are. Maybe this will force you to build something real instead of playing pretend. He stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. This is insane. You can't do this. I absolutely can. This is my business, and I have the right to protect my patrons from harassment. You're not being banned for breaking up with me, Kareem. You're being banned for your behavior in my establishment. No one will believe you. I'll tell them you're doing this because you're bitter about our relationship. You mean the relationship where you used me for money and emotional support, then dumped me via text when I wouldn't let you control my inheritance. Please, go ahead. Tell everyone. I have documentation for every dinner I paid for, every time I loaned you rent money, every broken promise you made. The fight drained out of him. He sank back into the chair, head in his hands. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Then he looked up, and his expression had changed. The mask of charm was completely gone. In its place was something ugly, entitled mean. You think you're so much better than me now? You built all this? He gestured around the room. You're still the same insecure girl who was desperate for my approval. The same girl who would have given me anything if I'd just loved her back. You're pathetic. There it was. The real Kareem. The one who'd been hiding underneath the performance all along. I stood up, smoothing my dress. You're right about one thing. I was desperate for your approval once. I would have given you anything. But that girl learned something important. She learned that people who love you don't make you beg for crumbs of respect. They don't mock you to their friends. They don't treat your dreams like jokes. I walked to the door, then paused. You're banned from Sahara Nights effective immediately. Security will escort you out. And Kareem? The next time you're tempted to mock someone for being broke or unsuccessful, remember this moment. Remember that the woman you dismissed built an empire while you were still pretending to be important. I opened the door. Marcus stepped inside immediately. This is crazy! Kareem's voice rose. You can't just throw me out like I'm nothing. I'm not throwing you out like you're nothing, Kareem. I'm throwing you out because you are nothing. At least, nothing of value to this establishment or my life. Marcus's hand on Kareem's shoulder was gentle but firm. Time to go, sir. Nadia, wait. Kareem's voice followed me as Marcus escorted him out. We can talk about this. I'm sorry, I'll apologize. I'll make it right. I kept walking. Through the orchid room, into the main club where the music pounded and beautiful people danced under lights I'd chosen, in a space I'd created. I walked past the bars I'd designed, past the VIP areas I'd planned, past the life I'd built from nothing. Maya appeared at my side. It's done. The blacklist went out 5 minutes ago. And the press release? Live on our social media and website. Already getting picked up by industry blogs. Good. We stood together at the edge of the dance floor watching the crowd. Somewhere out there, Kareem was being escorted to the street. Somewhere out there, his world was shrinking, doors closing, consequences arriving, and I felt empty, not satisfied, not victorious, just tired. You okay? Maya asked for the second time that day. I don't know. I thought this would feel better. More complete. Revenge usually doesn't. It's like eating cotton candy. Looks great, but doesn't actually fill you up. I laughed. A real laugh that surprised me. When did you become so wise? Been wise. You just usually don't stop to listen. My phone buzzed. A message from Camille Laurent. Saw your press release. Impressive response time to a difficult situation. Shows strong management. Looking forward to Monday's meeting. At least something good was coming from this night. Another buzz. This time from Layla. Heard what happened. Are you okay? Want me to come over? I typed back. I'm okay. Long story. Tell you tomorrow? Deal. Love you, babe. Love you too. I stood there for another moment, watching the club pulse with life. My club. My success. My proof that I was more than what Kareem had believed I could be. But Maya was right. The victory felt hollow. Because I'd built all of this partly to prove him wrong, and what kind of foundation was that? Built on spite and hurt and the need to show someone they'd made a mistake. I think I'm ready to go home, I said quietly. Want me to drive you? No, I'm good, just tired. Maya hugged me, fierce and quick. You did good tonight. Not just with Kareem. You protected your business, your reputation, and your staff. That's what leaders do. Maybe she was right. Maybe this wasn't about revenge at all. Maybe it was about boundaries, about drawing lines and enforcing them, about teaching people that actions have consequences and cruelty has costs. Or maybe I was just trying to make myself feel better about enjoying Kareem's humiliation. I drove home through LA's glittering night, the city spread out like scattered diamonds. Somewhere out there, Kareem was probably calling his friends, spinning the story, trying to salvage his reputation. Let him try. The truth had a way of catching up eventually. When I got home, I changed into sweats, poured myself tea instead of whiskey, and sat on my balcony watching the city breathe. My phone lit up with notifications. Congratulations from industry contacts who'd seen the press release, questions from friends who'd heard rumors, messages from staff checking in. I ignored them all. Instead, I pulled up old photos on my phone. Found the one I'd taken of my father a year before he died. He was sitting in his small apartment, smiling at the camera despite the medical equipment in the background. Despite knowing he'd lost everything he'd built and would never rebuild it. I did it, Baba, I whispered to his image. I built something. Something good. But I don't know if I did it the right way. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Nadia? A man's voice, older, accented, familiar. Mr. Bashir? Yes, hello, I hope I'm not calling too late. I heard some news through the business community about Sahara Nights and a situation. My heart sank. What did you hear? That you handled a difficult matter with grace and professionalism. That you protected your business and your values. Farid called me very proud. He wanted me to tell you that your father would have been proud too. Tears I hadn't expected stung my eyes. Thank you. That means, thank you. Nadia. I knew your father for 40 years. He was a good man who made one mistake. He trusted the wrong people. But he never let that make him cruel. Even when he lost everything, he never wanted revenge. He wanted justice. Yes, but not cruelty. How do you know the difference? Justice protects. Revenge just wounds. What you did tonight. Protecting your business, setting boundaries, enforcing consequences. That's justice. You have nothing to be ashamed of. We talked for a few more minutes before saying goodnight. When I hung up, I felt lighter somehow, less conflicted. I hadn't destroyed Kareem for fun or spite. I'd set boundaries he'd crossed and enforced consequences he'd earned. The fact that those consequences hurt didn't make me cruel. It made him accountable. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from a number I didn't recognize. You in? Happy now? Kareem. He must have gotten a new number just to send that message. I stared at it for a long time, considering my response. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Part of me wanted to send something cutting, something that would hurt. Instead, I wrote, "This was never about winning. It was about respect. I hope you learn the difference." Then I blocked the number and set my phone aside. The weekend passed quietly. I spent Saturday with Layla, telling her everything over brunch and wine. She laughed, cried, hugged me fiercely, and declared Kareem the dumbest man in Los Angeles. Sunday I spent at the club, walking through with Fareed and discussing expansion plans. He'd heard about Friday night, of course. The whole industry had. "You handled it well," he said as we reviewed blueprints for the Miami location. "Your father would have liked to see you standing up for yourself." Mr. Bashir said the same thing. "Because it's true." He patted my hand, his weathered face kind. "Now, let's build something bigger. Not because you have anything left to prove, but because you're good at this." Monday morning brought the final meeting with Camille Laurent. Her team was impressed with everything: our books, our operations, our crisis management. By noon, I had a commitment for $2 million in expansion funding. Sahara Nights Miami was officially greenlit. That night, as I stood in my club, my successful, thriving, beautiful club, watching people dance and laugh and live, I realized something important. I hadn't built this for Kareem. I'd built it despite him. And that made all the difference. My phone buzzed with a text from Maya. "Heard from a friend at Azure Lounge. Kareem tried to get in tonight. They turned him away. The blacklist is working." I typed back, "Good. Let him learn." But I felt no satisfaction in it. No joy. Just a quiet sense of closure. Kareem was my past, a lesson learned the hard way. But this club, this success, this life I'd built, that was my present. And the Miami expansion, the empire I was creating, the woman I was becoming, that was my future. And nowhere in that future was there room for people who tried to make me small. I thought of my father's words one more time. "When you succeed, don't become like the men who destroyed me." I hadn't. I'd protected myself, yes. Set boundaries? Yes. Enforced consequences? Absolutely. But I hadn't become cruel. I'd become careful, strong, successful on my own terms. And that, I realized, standing in my club as the music swelled and the lights danced, was the real victory. Not Kareem's downfall. My rise. Not his humiliation. My validation. Not revenge. Justice. I smiled, raised my glass to the empty air where my father's spirit might still linger, and whispered, "Thanks, Baba, for everything." Then I turned back to my empire and got to work. Epilogue, 6 months later. Sahara Nights Miami opened to record crowds. Camille Laurent's investment group was thrilled with the results. We were already discussing a third location, possibly New York. I heard through the grapevine that Kareem had moved to San Diego, something about a fresh start and new opportunities. I hoped he found them. I hoped he learned something. But mostly, I just didn't think about him anymore. My mother flew in from Dearborn for the Miami opening. She walked through the new club with tears in her eyes and said in Arabic, "Your father would have burst with pride." Layla was there too, of course, and Maya, and Marcus, and the whole team that had helped me build something from nothing. As we stood on the Miami beach watching the sunset after opening night, exhausted and exhilarated, Maya nudged me. "So, was it worth it? All of it?" I thought about the question. The heartbreak, the work, the sacrifice, the long nights and the fear and the moment when everything could have fallen apart. "Every second," I said. And I meant it. Not because of revenge, not because I'd proven Kareem wrong, but because I'd proven myself right. I could build an empire. I could trust my instincts. I could be successful, powerful, and kind all at the same time. And that was worth everything. The end. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.